Hello, hello. How are you feeling about interviews? Everybody gets a bit stressed out and a bit worried about interviews, and lots of people have the limiting belief that they always mess up at interviews. Okay, so it's a really limiting belief because maybe it is actually partly true. Okay, so if you've had poor experience in an interview before, if you've gone for an interview and not got the job, I mean, there's lots of us in that situation. You know, if you've been overlooked, you are going to feel like you have messed up in interviews before, and therefore, obviously, you're no good at interviews and you're going to mess up again. That's the limiting belief. It goes in that spiral. That's what we need to stop. Okay. When you think about it, have you ever been trained to do an interview? No? Well, tell me in the comments. Ever had any training for an interview? Ever had any top tips before? Ever really stopped and thought about what you want to be able to talk about in the interview and how you might be able to make that happen? Lots of us just wing it. Lots of us just go into interviews thinking, gosh, I wonder what they're going to ask me. I wonder if I'll be able to think of anything good to say. I wonder. That's not great prep. Other people go way into their prep, so it takes forever. You know, they're almost memorizing every word of the website, trying to second guess everything that's going to get asked and try and prepare for that, preparing big presentations. I mean, sometimes you're asked to do that, right? But, you know, there's two things here. It's kind of either or. We either do no prep and hope for the best, or we do loads of prep and tie ourselves up in knots and get really confused. So one of the reasons why I do so much interview prep with my clients is because actually a lot of the prep is not actually the right prep. We need to do things a bit differently. So today we want to just get over that limiting belief of I'm no good at interviews, maybe reframe that into I need to learn how to do better at interviews. That would be a good start. And let me give you a few tips as well. It's all about your prep and your mindset, but that doesn't mean that you have to spend hours and hours and hours preparing for your interview. Instead of trying to memorize answers, prepare a few key stories that really demonstrate and highlight all of the, no, forget that, not all of the, some of the highlights of your career so far. So think about what have you been most proud of achieving in your career? What would be relevant for this role? What would be relevant for this company? You know, yesterday and the day before when we were talking about, you know, what is the pain that your employer, potential employer, is experiencing right now because they're short-staffed and, you know, it's all happening, it's all going on and it's all a bit stressy for them. What is it that you're going to bring that will reassure them that that pain is just going to go away? All they need to do is hire you and that pain will just go away. So think about the stories you can tell that will reassure them that you can not only do this job, but you can do it standing on your head. You know, you can do it with some flair and some quality and maybe some fun. So use the STAR structure when you're thinking about your stories, okay, because you don't want to waffle on forever and wait. The STAR structure is really useful because what can happen is the interviewer has set aside a certain amount of time for the interview. And if you're a waffler, I'm a bit of a waffler. If you're a waffler, then it's very easy for you to waffle on with answers in the first 2 or 3 questions, and they might have then run out of time and not even have time to ask you the rest of their questions, which means they don't have enough information to be able to hire you. Okay, so it's really important not to waffle. Equally, it's very important to avoid giving one word or kind of one sentence answers that don't give enough information. So the STAR structure is your friend. This is what will help you to create your stories into nice little concise bite-sized chunks that will answer the question without waffle and without leaving out anything important. So STAR structure, situation, task, action, result. Okay, don't please tell a story in your interview without a result. That's like telling a joke and forgetting the punchline. Okay, what else can I say to you? Practice these stories out loud, okay? It's all very well writing them down, getting them all crafted into the STAR structure, but if the first time you've said them out loud is in the interview, you're putting yourself under unnecessary pressure. So say them out loud, go for a walk around the garden, read them, tell them to your partner or a friend, even, read them in the mirror, do whatever it takes, but practice them out loud. And also let's flip the perspective, okay? Let's change from, oh my God, I'm going into this interview to get grilled, they're going to ask me all these difficult questions, and think to yourself, okay, this is a two-way street. Okay, you're not straight out of school or university now, I'm guessing, in your career. You've been around a bit, you're an adult. Okay, so we can ditch this idea that the interviewer, the employer, is up here and you're down here as the candidate. The candidate going, please pick me, please choose me. That energy is not pleasant for anybody, and it's really not necessary now. You're an adult, you've got some experience, you've been around the block a bit. So what is happening in this interview is that 2 or 3 adults are coming together for a conversation. You are absolutely equal with your interviewer or interviewers. Okay, so even if there's a big panel and it's just you on the other side, you don't need to feel like there's this imbalance. You are an adult coming to have a conversation with these adults about whether you would all like to work together. That's it, okay? So maybe even flip that name, interview, to conversation or meeting. By flipping the perspective, we can flip the way we feel and give ourselves more confidence going in. Now, it's not all about the questions that they ask you. It's also about the questions that you ask them, because in a conversation, it's a two-way street. It's not a one-way street. And at the end of most interviews, the interviewers will say to you, so, do you have any questions for us? And if you are scrabbling about, well, either saying, oh no, I don't think so, that all sounds fine, or scrabbling about asking questions about the pay or the holiday or the training, all of those kinds of things, you're just going to sound like every other candidate. And also, you haven't even got the job yet, so, leave the pay negotiations and the benefits negotiations until you've actually got the job offer. So some better questions, that's what you need. You need to really start to think about what are some thoughtful questions that I can ask that will help me to understand a bit more about the culture of this organisation, because so many people jump out of the frying pan into the fire. So, you're in a job that you are a bit frustrated in, can't cope with it anymore, don't want to be there anymore, need to get out, you're a bit desperate. So you go, oh, there's a job that looks a bit better, I'll go there, jump. And then you realise it's not better and maybe it's even worse than the job you were in before. So taking the time to think about the kind of culture that you would like to work in, and then asking thoughtful questions to gauge the culture in that organisation, really, really important. And also, when you ask questions that are a bit different, you stand yourself apart from the competition and you show initiative, and it puts you kind of in control because you're the one asking the questions. So that should give you some confidence too. Okay, just one last thing then. Before you go into the interview, I want you to be calm. I want you to feel confident. And I know this is a big ask, but if you've done some prep, you should be getting there. So what I would suggest that you do is remember a little mantra, okay? First of all, I'd like you to visualize success. So I'd like you to visualize this meeting that you're going into going really well, okay? And then I'd also like you to have a little mantra that you can just repeat to yourself while you're waiting to go in that is going to keep you calm and keep those nerves down. So you can choose whatever mantra you like, obviously. What I would suggest is that you choose one that has 3 words and they are all positive words, things to remind you what to do rather than things to remind you what not to do. So don't have a mantra that says, don't mess up. All you're going to do there is attract more nerves and probably mess up. So if you have a mantra, something like breathe, smile, listen. Breathe, smile, listen. And you can just say that quietly to yourself, say it in your head. Breathe, smile, listen. That would be a really good way to go into your interview thinking, I'm calm, I'm breathing, I'm smiling, so I look friendly, and listen to the questions because you want to make sure you're answering them in the right way. So look, I help my clients get prepared for their interviews, and I would love to be able to do that for you if you are struggling and you feel like you need some extra support with this. So I've blogged about it, there are resources on my website, louisejenner.com. You can book a little interview prep session. You can have one session or a couple of sessions in a little package. There's a special offer on the 2-session package. If you'd like information about that, please comment interview help or something like that in the comments, or send me a DM or email me, whatever you prefer. But please do get the help. If you've been messing up interviews and you want to stop that happening again, and you feel like you need some help to do that, I would love to meet you and help you to regain your confidence and go into your next interview and maybe, just maybe, nail the job. Okay, this is day 14 of these limiting beliefs videos. So today we've dealt with interview nerves. You can catch all the videos over on my YouTube channel. I'm uploading them there every day. And then I'm also putting them on LinkedIn as well. So you can see them all over the place. But if you want to get them all in one place, YouTube is probably the best place to do that. Tomorrow I will be back with you are your own brand. Okay, the limiting belief of I'm just another employee. What do I matter? We don't want that feeling. I'm going to be talking to you about how you can really stand out, show up, stand out, shine in your own right as an employee. And that will help you to elevate your visibility within your organisation, within your industry. This is the kind of stuff we need to think about if we're looking for my clock is doing funny things. Right, so that's tomorrow, okay? Be your own brand, and we're going to really start building a winning career strategy over the next 7 days. Thank you for watching. Let me know if I can be of any help. See you tomorrow. Bye.